Matt from the Random Maker here, and today I am here to do another Arduino project based on the lessons provided by Elegoo for their starter kits. If you look at the number above, you can kind of see where you are in the series, and other than that, we're going to flip screens and we'll introduce today's project. Now, what we're going to be working on today is part 2, lesson 3, digital inputs from elegoo.com. And you know what, instead of talking about it, let's flip over and let's start breadboarding. Let's get working, but first you need to know, what are we going to need for this particular project? You're going to need the Elegoo Arduino 2.3. You are going to need a breadboard. You are going to need a LED, 2 switches. Now I'm going to call them buttons because technically that's what they look like to me, but these are considered switches. You've got your 220 resistors, and then you've got various cables of different lengths, colors, and sizes that I'm going to be matching with the blueprint, as that seems to be a very good idea in my opinion. Let's get working on this. Okay, so first things first here, I'm going to put the board off to the side, and as always I like to kind of go from the negative in a circle, but I'm going to leave out the wire that connects the board into place. So as we can see here, we are going to be connecting the board into place. I'm going to just turn this board around for my own sanity so that as I'm filming I can see which way is up, because these color codes, well, not color codes, but the positive and negative, if you look at the colors, you can match them to the drawings, and so it's a lot easier for me to tell what's going on, right? So, take a small black wire. I'm going to keep this longer one for the jump out to the board, and I'm going to stick predominantly with these small black wires here. I'm going to put it into the negative, and then I'm going to put it into just a short little jump here into this rail, and then I'm going to take my LED. As we know, the smaller end of the wires is the negative, and because we're going into negative, I'm just going to take this wire and I'm going to push it so the negative's running into the negative side and the positive's on the other. I'm then going to need to take my 220 and I'm just going to put it very simply into connecting rails. Well, the nice thing about the resistors is they're non-directional, so I just have one end of the resistor going into the positive end here. And then what I would do next normally is I would take this red wire, I'm going to place it into the resistor, and then I put it into the board. Now, because we're not going to be doing that, I'm just going to put this red wire out of the way like this, just so it's not in the way for the next step. Now, what I am going to do next is I am going to put these switches into place. The nice thing about these switches is they tend to only fit in one position. If you try and go the other way, it doesn't work as well. So I'm just going to put these switches in. If you are having problems with this project, check these switches. It is the most common error I have found. And yeah, pretty simple. Now if you notice, I am moving things a little wider compared to the schematic, and the reason is I just from what I can see, it's easier to see on camera, so I would actually suggest going closer together like the schematic to basically get things working the way it is, but in my case, it's just so you guys and gals in the audience can see what I'm doing. Next thing I'm going to do is on the right side of each of these switches, I'm going to put a black cable to represent our ground into the negative, and I'm going to do the same thing on the right hand side here. I am then going to take my blue wires and yellow wires, and I'm going to, as you guys have, and gals have probably noticed, I kind of intermingle, but I always try and keep the colors as close to the schematic as I can, or the working drawing, because it's just easier for me in the end to tell where everything goes. Now the next thing I am going to do is put this one end of the longer cable into the negative, and I'm going to take out my red here so that we can now see we have the 4 wires that are going to go into the board, and that's about it for this stage of the game. And let's get the board into place. Now that we have the board here, we have to make sure we're putting the wires in the right direction. So you've got your analog side here and your digital side here. Now, as I've kind of shown before in previous videos, there are numbers that it is not, oh, that's actually a little better on the camera, but it comes down to, you just have to listen to the pins I say out loud, or easier answer, go to the schematics or the working drawing and just go off that. As always, I like to go ground last on this particular case, so let's go with the red pin, which is the first. Here it goes into pin 5. The yellow pin goes into pin 8. Your blue pin goes into pin 9. Your black goes into ground. Okay, so there is the working 2.3. This digital input lesson is actually pretty good because it does show how the digital inputs work on this particular project. Okay, well, at this stage, I am going to switch over to the code and then I'm going to download it in.
Okay, well, let's actually get this project moved on from breadboarding to the coding side, and this is a really easy one to get working. So we're going to go over to open. I'm going to hit open again. You're going to find where you have downloaded your digital input IO and O file from elegoo.com, and I'm going to click on digital inputs, and that's going to draw all my code into a new window, as you can all see right in front of me here. And this is a really simple one, and right here is why it's so important to get the right wires in the right sockets, because we've got pin 5, 9, 8. When you're ready, you're going to hit verify. That just checks the code to make sure it's good, and once you're ready, we are going to plug in our board, and then you're going to hit the upload button right here. Now, as my board's not plugged in, I can't do that because you can only run verify, but I'm going to switch over to the board and I'm going to go through the final process there, and we're going to get our light working. Well, let's switch screens.
Now that we have the entire board ready to go, next thing we have to do is plug our Arduino into the computer. And then I'm just going to go over and I am going to, as we've already verified the software at this point, I'm just going to hit upload. And we can see the board thinking. Now, if you don't see anything happen at first, that's fine, because with the digital inputs project from Elegoo, it's just very basic on and off switch. And that's about it. All right, well, there's 2.3 digital inputs locked and ready to go. Hey, if you liked that video, why don't you hit the like button? If you want to see more content like this and other random projects, hit the subscribe button and follow what the Random Maker is doing. If you have any project ideas and want to see come to life in front of you, put it in the comment section below. We do take a look at all the comments, and whether we reply or not, just we are reading them. I want you to know that. And you know what? Until the next project, Matt from the Random Maker saying, let's get making.